Just pour the water, dear. Don't try to pronounce force majeure, you'll sprain something. The voice is a low rumble of expensive cigars and unearned confidence. It belongs to Arthur Harrison, CEO of Harrison Holdings, a man whose tailored suit seems to be holding in a lifetime of self-satisfaction. The words slice through the tense air of the penthouse dining room, aimed not at his legal counsel or the nervous delegation across the table, but at the woman holding the glass pitcher. Her name is Maya Lincoln. She is dressed in simple, elegant black trousers and a crisp white silk blouse, functional, professional, and utterly invisible to the men in this room. To them, her attire is a uniform, her presence a utility. She is here to serve. She doesn't flinch. Her hand, holding the pitcher slick with condensation, remains perfectly steady. She continues her silent circuit around the vast mahogany table, a piece of furniture so polished it reflects the glittering New York skyline like a dark, placid lake. She moves with an economy of motion that is both graceful and practiced. Harrison's comment was a performance, a casual display of power for his lieutenants, who offer the requisite shallow chuckles. He wanted to show everyone, including the team from Omnicorp he was about to devour, that he was so powerful he could afford to be cruel to the help. Maya approaches his side of the table. She can feel his gaze on her, heavy and appraising, expecting a flicker of shame or a fumbling apology. She gives him nothing. Her eyes are focused on the task, the simple physics of pouring water into a glass without a single drop spilling onto the pristine white tablecloth. The water flows in a silent, perfect arc. The ice cubes clink softly, the only sound in the room now that the laughter has died. It is a strangely intimate sound in a room so full of cold ambition. As she fills the glass of the man next to Harrison, she catches her own reflection in the gleaming tabletop. A ghost in a silk blouse. A shadow serving tightens. The humiliation is a physical thing, a cold knot tightening in her stomach. It's a familiar feeling, one she has learned to metabolize into fuel. Rage is a luxury. Observation is a tool. She notes the slight tremble in the Omnicorp CEO's hand as he reaches for his own glass. She notes the way Harrison's top lawyer, a man named Sterling, won't meet anyone's eye, focusing instead on a single clause in the document before him. Section 7, Line 4. She feels the weight of their collective disregard, a dozen pairs of eyes that look through her as if she were part of the furniture. They see a waitress, a server, an accessory to their important lives. They have no idea they are looking at their salvation or their ruin. The power in this room, she knows, is not just in the signatures on a page, but in who is allowed to speak, who is expected to remain silent, and who can read the fine print. She feels a dozen pairs of eyes, none of them truly seeing her, each one a pinprick of judgment. Would you endure this? To stand in a room full of power and be treated like a ghost with a pitcher? Harrison leans back, satisfied with his little show. See, simple, he says to no one in particular, taking a loud sip of the water she just poured. Everyone has their role. Maya straightens up, the pitcher held loosely in her hand. Her own role, she thinks, is far more complex than he could ever imagine. She is not just here to pour water. She is here to bear witness. And today, she suspects, she might be here to do a great deal more. Her silence is not deference. It is a coiled spring. The pressure in the room is immense, the air thick with unspoken threats and the metallic scent of money, but the pressure inside Maya Lincoln is greater still. For now, she continues to pour, moving from one glass to the next, her calm presents a stark contrast to the brewing storm. Each glass she fills is a promise, a quiet vow. The room will hear her voice, but not yet. They have to underestimate her just a little bit more. The meeting drones on. The air, already thin at this altitude, grows suffocating with legal jargon and veiled threats. Maya continues her silent orbit, the glass water pitcher her constant companion. It has become an extension of her arm, a prop in the role they have assigned her. The pitcher itself is a heavy, beautifully cut piece of crystal, designed to look impressive but be functionally simple. Much like their perception of her, it catches the light, refracting the tense faces around the table into 100 fractured, anxious expressions. This object, meant to be invisible, is her lens. Arthur Harrison, buoyed by his earlier display of dominance, grows more expansive. He gestures with a thick, manicured hand, his voice booming as he dismisses a point of contention raised by Omnicorp's lead counsel. A contingency of that nature is trivial. Let's not get bogged down in the hypotheticals, gentlemen. We're here to make history, not write a textbook. A junior executive on Harrison's side, eager to curry favor, lets out a braying laugh. As Maya leans in to refill his water glass, he doesn't bother to move his arm or his papers. He simply angles his body away from her, a minute, dismissive gesture that forces her to reach awkwardly across him. It's a classic power play, a microaggression designed to reinforce her status as a non-person. He is the sun. She is a minor satellite expected to adjust her orbit to his convenience. For a moment, her fingers brush against the sleeve of his expensive jacket. The fabric is smooth, cool, and feels like armor. She pulls back, her expression unreadable. She sees this behavior all the time. It is the casual cruelty of the powerful, the thoughtless disregard of those who have never had to consider the existence of others outside their immediate sphere of influence. Her heart rate remains steady. She has trained it to. Outward calm is her shield. Inside, however, she is a meticulous archivist of slights, not for the purpose of revenge, but for understanding. This man's disrespect tells her he is weak, a follower who mimics the behavior of his alpha. He is not a threat, merely a symptom of the disease in the room. The pitcher feels heavier now, weighted with more than just water. It is weighted with their assumptions, their arrogance, their willful blindness. She thinks of the years she spent in libraries that smelled of old paper and ambition, the all-nighters fueled by cheap coffee, the debates in mock trial where she sharpened her mind into a weapon. All of that experience, all of that knowledge, rendered invisible by a simple glass pitcher and a set of preconceived notions. She continues her rounds, a silent observer in a war of words she is more qualified to fight than any of them. If you had to stand in that room, absorbing their condescension with every breath, would you tolerate this? The discussion returns to the contract's sticking point, the liability clauses in Section 7. As Maya moves to the Omnicorp side of the table, she notices their CEO, a man named Robert Chen, staring at the pitcher in her hand. But he isn't looking at the pitcher, he's looking past it, his eyes unfocused, his jaw tight. He is a man cornered, and Harrison knows it. The clause stands as written, Robert, Harrison declares, his voice leaving no room for negotiation. It is a pronouncement, not a proposal. It is the sound of a door slamming shut. The subtle threat hangs in the air, sign this or face the consequences. Maya places the pitcher on a polished sideboard, its crystal base making a soft, definitive click against the wood. The sound is barely audible, but in the suffocating silence it feels like a gavel. The tension in the room solidifies. It is no longer a negotiation. It is a siege. Omnicorp is the castle, and Harrison's army is at the gates, armed with a document that is less a contract and more a Trojan horse. The focus is laser-sharp on Section 7, Line 4. To the untrained eye, it appears to be standard boilerplate, a dry recitation of conditions under which liability is transferred. But Maya sees it for what it is, a masterfully crafted piece of predatory litigation, a time bomb set to detonate 90 days after signing. The trap is elegant in its cruelty. It leverages a predicted downturn in a specific emerging market, a downturn Harrison Holdings has insider knowledge of and has likely helped orchestrate. When that market dips, a cascade of events will be triggered, shifting Omnicorp's debt obligations in a way that makes them immediately insolvent. Harrison won't just be a partner, he'll be a predator picking over a carcass. The company will be his for pennies on the dollar, and thousands of employees will lose their jobs. The stakes are no longer just financial, they are deeply human. Maya feels a switch flip within her. This is no longer a case study to be observed. It is a crime in progress. Her role as a silent witness has become untenable. The knowledge she possesses is a weight, a moral imperative. To walk away now, to retreat to the quiet anonymity of the kitchen, would be an act of complicity. It would make her a party to the destruction of Robert Chen's life's work and the livelihoods of his employees. She cannot allow it. This is the moment of commitment, the point of no return. The conflict has her now, not by choice, but by conscience. Harrison, sensing victory, pushes for the final commitment. He slides a pen across the table, a heavy gold-plated instrument that looks more like a scepter. "Let's sign, Robert. Let's make history." Robert Chen's hand hovers over the pen. His face is pale, his resolve crumbling. He knows he's being trapped, but he can see no way out. His own lawyers seem out of their depth, intimidated by Harrison's legal team and the sheer force of his personality. They are whispering among themselves, but their advice is weak, uncertain. They are beaten. Maya stands by the wall near the door, her path of retreat still physically open but morally closed. She could leave. She could collect her pay, go home, and read about the collapse of Omni Corp in the news in 3 months' time. But she would know she had been in the room where the bomb was planted and did nothing. The thought is a shard of glass in her gut. The public scrutiny of a failed merger would be intense, but the private scrutiny of her own conscience would be unbearable. What would you do next? Knowing what you know, seeing the pen move closer to the page, would you step forward or would you step back? She watches Chen's fingers tremble as they reach for the pen. The air crackles. Harrison's smile is a predator's grin. Every instinct in Maya's body screams at her to intervene. The quiet observer must now become an actor. The decision is made. She takes a small, almost imperceptible step away from the wall, shifting her weight onto the balls of her feet. She is ready. As Robert Chen's fingers graze the cold metal of the pen, a young lawyer on his team, a man named David, makes one last, desperate attempt. He clears his throat, his voice thin and reedy. "Mr. Harrison, regarding the indemnity precedent for Section 7, our understanding of Ashcroft v. Bellwether suggests." Harrison cuts him off with a wave of his hand. "Ashcroft v. Bellwether is irrelevant. That was a tech patent dispute. This is a global logistics merger." "Apples and oranges, son. Stay in your lane." David flushes, retreating into his chair, utterly defeated. He knows there's a connection, a legal principle that applies, but he can't articulate it under pressure. He shuffles his papers, his face a mask of frustration. This is the opening Maya needs. It's small, but it's there. Moving with the fluid, unobtrusive grace she has perfected, she circles the table, the now half-empty pitcher in her hand. Her path takes her directly behind the young, humiliated lawyer. As she leans in to refill his glass, her movements are a perfect screen. No one else can see her face or hear her voice. She doesn't pour. She pauses for a single, charged second, her mouth close to his ear. In a voice no louder than a breath, she murmurs, "Not Ashcroft. Cite Thorne v. Gibraltar, 1988. It redefines fiduciary duty in cross-border acquisitions. Page 342. Then she's gone, moving to the next glass, her expression placid, her movements seamless. It takes a moment for the information to register. David freezes. His eyes dart up, trying to catch her gaze, but she is already on the other side of the table, the picture of a diligent server. He fumbles for his tablet, his fingers flying across the screen. He pulls up the case file, his eyes scanning, widening in disbelief, then in dawning comprehension. It's all there. The precedent is perfect. It's an obscure case, one that only a specialist in international contract law would know, but it's an ironclad argument. It completely reframes the legality of Harrison's predatory clause. A flicker of hope ignites in his eyes. He looks over at Meyer again, his expression a mixture of awe and profound confusion. Who is this woman? Did he just imagine that? Did a waitress just hand him the silver bullet he and his entire team had missed? Did you catch what she just did? In a room full of Ivy League lawyers, the most brilliant legal mind belonged to the woman pouring their water. David opens his mouth to speak, to cite the case, to blow Harrison's argument out of the water. But he hesitates. He looks at Harrison, then at his own boss, Robert Chen, then back at the woman by the sideboard. To reveal his source would be to invite ridicule, to break the unwritten rules of the room. He would be laughed out of the building for taking legal advice from the catering staff. Fear and ambition wrestle with integrity. The small victory she handed him is immediately undermined by the very bias she is fighting against. The case file glows on his screen, a weapon he is too afraid to wield. And the moment, the perfect, beautiful moment, is lost. Discouraged by David's hesitation, Maya takes a moment to compose herself in the service corridor just outside the main dining room. The polished quiet of the meeting room is replaced by the clatter of plates and the hushed, hurried conversations of the kitchen staff. It is here, in this liminal space between the powerful and the powerless, that her true character is revealed. She sees two young servers huddled in a corner, their faces streaked with distress. One, a young man named Leo, is clenching his fists. The other, a young woman named Maria, is trying not to cry. Hovering over them is the catering manager, a man whose authority is confined to this small, windowless world and who wields it like a tyrant. $100 steak dropped. Do you know who pays for that? I do. The manager hisses, his face inches from Leo's. This is coming out of your pay, both of you. It was an accident, Leo protests, his voice shaking. The floor is slick. Excuses, the manager spits. You're careless, incompetent. Maya steps forward. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. Her presence has a weight that makes the manager turn. There is a wet spot near the kitchen threshold, she says, her tone calm and factual. I noted it on the pre-shift safety log at 11:45 a.m. Per hotel policy, Section 4, subsection C, failure to address a reported hazard makes the house liable for any resulting accidents or losses. The manager stares at her, his jaw slack. He, like the lawyers in the other room, is utterly disarmed by her competence. He expected a fellow servant, not a walking encyclopedia of the employee handbook. He sputters, trying to regain his footing, but the precision of her statement has already deflated him. Maya turns her attention to Leo and Maria. Are you two all right? She asks, her voice softening. The shift in tone is remarkable. The cold, analytical observer from the boardroom is gone, replaced by a woman of deep, quiet empathy. Maria nods, wiping her eyes. He was going to take our whole paycheck. He won't now, Maya says with quiet assurance. She looks at them, really looks at them, and sees not just two young servers, but two people with dreams and worries, struggling to get by in a system that is quick to punish and slow to reward. She sees the ghost of her younger self. This bond, forged in a moment of shared vulnerability, becomes her anchor. It clarifies her purpose. She isn't just fighting for Omnicorp or for some abstract legal principle. She is fighting for Leo and for Maria and for every other person who is treated as disposable. If you were there, watching this quiet act of protection, would you step closer, or would you stay silent? Leo looks at her with a gratitude that is almost painful to see. Thank you. No one's ever stood up for us like that. Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, she replies simply. Her words hang in the air, a mission statement. The connection she has made with them creates a profound moral obligation. She can't just win the legal argument in the other room. She has to change the room itself for them. She has to go back in there not just for herself, but for the people whose names the powerful will never bother to learn. Returning to the periphery of the boardroom, Maya's resolve has hardened into steel. The emotional anchor of her encounter with Leo and Maria has given her fight a new, sharper focus. She watches the proceedings with a forensic calm, her mind dissecting the weaponized language of the contract. Her thoughts turn again to Section 7, Line 4. From the outside, it's a fortress of legalese, impenetrable and intimidating. But she has the key. She sees the architecture of the trap, the brutal elegance of its design. It hinges on the phrase, in the event of acute market volatility. Harrison's team has defined volatility with such cunning specificity that it applies to only one scenario, the imminent, manufactured collapse of the Calla Lilly Fund, an obscure but critical emerging market investment vehicle based in Southeast Asia. Omnicorp has a moderate, publicly disclosed stake in that fund. It's a minor part of their portfolio, considered a safe, long-term holding. What they don't know, what Harrison's insider trading allows him to know, is that a key government subsidy for the fund is being pulled in exactly 67 days. The fund will become worthless overnight. This, according to the contract's unique definition, will constitute acute market volatility. The moment that happens, the clause triggers. It forces an immediate punitive reevaluation of Omnicorp's total asset value. But here's the truly venomous part. The reevaluation isn't based on market rates. It's based on a liquidation value formula buried in the appendices of the contract, a formula that devalues their assets by nearly 80%. OmniCorp will be in immediate breach of the merger's financial health covenants. Per the contract, Harrison Holdings will then have the right to acquire OmniCorp's controlling shares for the price of their outstanding debt, a fraction of their true worth. It's a corporate assassination, disguised as a safety clause. Maya understands the cost with sickening clarity. This isn't just about money. It's about the erasure of a legacy, the destruction of a company that, while not perfect, is a source of stable employment for over 10,000 people. She thinks of Leo and Maria. How many more of them work for OmniCorp? People whose lives will be appended by this quiet, vicious sentence written on a piece of paper. Have you ever seen a rule used like a weapon? A line in a contract twisted into a blade aimed at the heart of thousands of unsuspecting lives. The choice before her is stark and unforgiving. She can comply with the social rules of the room, stay silent, remain invisible, and allow this injustice to occur. In doing so, she loses her dignity, her sense of self, the very core of who she is. Or she can resist. She can speak the truth, shatter the illusion, and risk everything. Her job, her reputation, her carefully constructed anonymity. They would try to destroy her, to paint her as a disgruntled employee, a fantasist, a madwoman. The system protects its own, and she is an outsider. Comply and lose her soul, or resist and risk ruin. For Maya, it's no longer a choice. It is a calling. Just as Maya prepares to find her moment, to somehow intervene, the catering manager reappears at her elbow. His face is a tight mask of resentment from their earlier encounter. He has clearly been given new orders. "Mr. Harrison's compliments," the manager says, his voice dripping with false politeness. He feels the service portion of this meeting is concluded. "Your presence is no longer required on this floor. Please remain in the kitchen until you are summoned." It's a dismissal. A banishment. Harrison, annoyed by her silent, watchful presence, is having her physically removed. He is reasserting the hierarchy, putting the help back in her place. The order is a slap in the face, a clear message that she is irrelevant. As the manager gestures curtly towards the service door, Maya's eyes meet David's one last time across the expanse of the room. The young lawyer has the Thorne v. Gibraltar case still open on his tablet, its legal power radiating from the screen. He sees her being escorted out. He knows she gave him the key, and he knows she is now being punished for simply existing in his space. He could speak up. He could say, "Wait, she's with me," or "I need to consult with her." He could do something. He does nothing. He drops his gaze, turning his attention back to his useless notes, his shoulders slumping in a posture of quiet shame. The door to her one potential ally has closed. He has chosen his career over his conscience. She is utterly alone. The walk to the kitchen is a walk of shame, each step echoing the failure of her attempt to work from the shadows. The door swings shut behind her, the muffled sounds of the boardroom fading away, replaced once again by the clatter and steam of the kitchen. She is isolated, cut off from the very battle she needs to fight. The pen is still on the table. The signing is imminent. All is lost. She leans against a cool stainless steel counter, the sterile smell of bleach filling her nostrils. The weight of her powerlessness is crushing. She has the knowledge, the skill, the truth, and she's been sidelined, locked out, deemed unworthy even to occupy the same room as the men she could ruin with a single sentence. The system, it seems, has won. It has pushed her to the margins, silenced her without her ever having spoken a word. What would you sacrifice to stay true to what you know is right? She has already sacrificed her anonymity, and now she faces the loss of the entire fight. For a moment, her composure threatens to crack. Despair is a bitter tide rising in her throat. But then, she thinks of Leo and Maria. She thinks of the thousands of OmniCorp employees. She thinks of Harrison's smug, triumphant face. The despair recedes, and in its place, something harder and more resilient takes root. It is a quiet, cold vow. He will not win. I will not let him. She doesn't know how, but she knows the fight isn't over. She pushes herself off the counter, her spine straight. Her exile to the kitchen was meant to be an ending. She decides it will be a beginning. In the sterile confines of the kitchen, time stretches and slows. Every distant, muffled murmur from the boardroom sounds like the final gasps of OmniCorp. Maya closes her eyes, focusing. Panic is a luxury she cannot afford. She needs a plan. Working from the inside quietly had failed. The system was too rigid, the biases too entrenched. Therefore, the only option left is to shatter the system itself. She pictures the room, the layout, the seating arrangement, the location of the PR cameras that Harrison's team had brought in to document his glorious triumph. The cameras, that's the key. This isn't just a private meeting, it's a piece of corporate theater, and theater requires an audience. She will give them a performance they will never forget. She walks to the kitchen door, her hand resting on the handle. On the other side, Robert Chen is picking up the pen. She can feel it, a palpable sense of capitulation radiating even through the thick wood. It is now or never. She takes a deep, centering breath, pulling on a reserve of strength she didn't know she possessed. The fear is still there, a cold flutter in her chest, but it is now overshadowed by a powerful, clarifying sense of purpose. She is no longer just a lawyer or an observer. She is an instrument of justice. Her eyes fall upon the sideboard where she left the crystal water pitcher. It sits there, a silent witness. It is the symbol of her subjugation, the tool of her invisibility. She will make it the instrument of her return. She pushes the door open and steps back into the room. The catering manager starts to move towards her, his face contorting in anger, but she ignores him. All eyes are on Robert Chen as he uncaps the pen, its gold nib poised inches above the signature line. Maya walks not to the side, not to the shadows, but directly toward the head of the table where Arthur Harrison sits, radiating smug victory. Her steps are not hurried, but they are unstoppable, each one a declaration of intent. The room falls silent. Chen's hand freezes mid-air. Harrison looks up, his expression shifting from triumph to irritation, then to disbelief. She reaches the sideboard and picks up the heavy glass water pitcher. Her grip is firm. She continues to the head of the table and, with a deliberate, resolute movement, places the pitcher down on the polished mahogany. The sound is not a clink. It is a thud, a solid, authoritative sound that cracks the spell of Harrison's power. It is the sound of a gauntlet being thrown. It is the sound of the world shifting on its axis. This is where everything could flip. She has crossed the threshold. She has entered the proving ground. She stands at the head of the table, unarmed but for the truth, and for the first time everyone in the room is looking at her. Really looking. And in their eyes she sees not dismissal but a dawning, fearful confusion. The waitress is gone. Someone else is standing in her place. What is the meaning of this? Arthur Harrison barks, his face flushing a dangerous shade of crimson. The spell is broken and his composure is the first casualty. Security! Get her out of here. Maya doesn't look at the security guards who have started to move towards her. She doesn't look at the stunned faces of the OmniCorp team or the panicked sycophants on Harrison's side. She looks directly at Arthur Harrison, her gaze as cool and steady as the water in the pitcher before her. The meaning, she says, her voice perfectly level, carrying to every corner of the silent room, is that you are about to knowingly and willfully commit actionable fraud, Mr. Harrison. And I cannot, as an officer of the court, allow that to happen. A collective gasp ripples through the room. The phrase officer of the court hangs in the air, electric and utterly incongruous with the scene they have been witnessing for the past 2 hours. Sterling, Harrison's lawyer, finds his voice. Officer of what court? You're a waitress. You're trespassing. Am I? Maya asks, a faint, ironic smile touching her lips. She reaches into the pocket of her trousers and pulls out a slim, elegant business card case. She slides one out and places it on the table next to the pitcher. Maya Lincoln, she says, her voice resonating with a newfound authority. Lead counsel for the Meridian Group, retained 3 months ago by the board's independent oversight committee to conduct a final review of this merger. My apologies for the unorthodox introduction. I was instructed to observe the final negotiations discreetly. You simply made it, easier than I expected. The silence that follows is absolute. It is a dense, heavy silence filled with the frantic recalculations of 24 powerful minds. The PR cameras, still rolling, zoom in on her face. Harrison stares at her, his mouth slightly agape, the color draining from his face. He looks like a man who has just seen a ghost. That's impossible, he stammers. Is it? Maya continues, her voice cutting and precise. Let's talk about Section 7, Line 4. You called it a force majeure clause, an interesting choice of words. As I recall from my time as a fellow at The Hague, force majeure refers to unforeseeable circumstances. But you foresaw them, didn't you, Arthur? You knew the Calla Lily Fund was going to be delisted. You knew it would trigger a re-evaluation based on the liquidation formula in Appendix C, subsection 8, a formula, by the way, that is legally indefensible under Thorne v. Gibraltar, 1988. You aren't protecting your investment. You are orchestrating a hostile takeover and attempting to acquire a $100 million company for the price of its debt. She delivers the last lines without blinking, a flawless, devastating indictment. She recites the obscure legal precedent she had fed to David, leaving no doubt as to its source. David looks like he might faint. Robert Chen looks as if he's been defibrillated. The power dynamic in the room has not just shifted, it has been completely inverted. Did you feel that shift? The moment a ghost became a queen and the king was revealed to be a naked emperor. Harrison is speechless. He looks to Sterling for help, but his lawyer is staring at Maya with a look of pure, unadulterated professional terror. The trap she just described is not just unethical, it is criminally fraudulent. She hasn't just uncovered a loophole, she has uncovered a conspiracy. The waitress has become the prosecutor, and the entire boardroom is her courtroom. The room implodes. Harrison's team erupts in a cacophony of frantic whispers and panicked denials. Sterling is already on his phone, presumably to a criminal defense attorney. The Omni Corp team is in a state of shock, staring at Meyer as if she were a mythological figure who had just descended from the heavens to smite their enemies. Harrison, finally finding his voice, resorts to bluster. This is an outrage, a setup. You have no proof. Mr. Harrison, Maya says, her voice cutting through the chaos like a scalpel. Every word spoken in this room for the past 3 hours has been recorded, per the Oversight Committee's directive. Your admission that Ashcroft v. Bellwether was irrelevant, your dismissal of the clause as hypothetical, your very clear and documented intent to mislead Mr. Chen. That is all the proof I need. She gestures toward one of the decorative floral arrangements on a nearby console. A tiny, winking red light is visible deep within the petals. The last of Harrison's bravado evaporates. He sinks into his chair, a deflated monument to his own hubris. Now is the moment of choice. The room looks to Maya, waiting for her to deliver the killing blow. She could demand Harrison's immediate termination. She could announce the dissolution of the deal and the filing of a lawsuit that would obliterate Harrison Holdings. She has the power to exact vengeance, to burn his empire to the ground for the humiliation he put her through. But she doesn't. Revenge is an emotional indulgence. Justice is a structural repair. She addresses Robert Chen, her tone now collaborative, constructive. Mr. Chen, the foundation of this deal is corrupt, but the strategic potential of a merger, if executed ethically, remains sound. I am prepared to recommend to the Oversight Committee that we renegotiate, not terminate. Then she turns her gaze back to the shattered remains of Harrison's team. My conditions are not punitive. They are corrective. Her ask is concrete and fair. She doesn't demand resignations, which would be temporary. She demands permanent change. First, Section 7, and all related appendices will be struck from the contract and rewritten from scratch by a joint counsel, with my team holding final approval. Second, a new clause will be added, a human impact clause, mandating a third-party audit of how this merger will affect every single employee, from the executive level to the custodial staff, with protections against punitive layoffs for the first 5 years. And third, she adds, her voice taking on a new intensity, Harrison Holdings will fund a program. A real one, not for PR but for perpetuity. The stakeholders are silent, weighing her proposal. It is an offer not of retribution but of redemption, a path forward that salvages the deal while fundamentally altering the rules of the game. What does real justice look like here? Is it the catharsis of a single man's downfall, or the creation of a system that prevents thousands from ever falling in the first place? Maya has made her choice. Now they must make theirs. Robert Chen is the first to speak, his voice filled with a profound sense of relief and respect. We accept those terms, unconditionally. All eyes turn to the Harrison Holdings side of the table, with Arthur Harrison rendered impotent. A senior board member, a woman who had remained silent until now, clears her throat. Harrison Holdings agrees. We will cooperate fully. The victory is real, but Maya knows that a verbal agreement is just the first step. The real work is in building the system that will outlast this moment. Over the next 2 weeks, she doesn't just oversee the rewriting of the contract, she becomes its primary architect. The new Human Impact Clause, which the teams start referring to as the Lincoln Clause, is her masterpiece. It's not a vague promise, it's a detailed, enforceable protocol. It mandates the creation of an employee-led review board with representatives from every level of both companies who must sign off on any and all restructuring plans. It legally obligates the new merged entity to invest a minimum of 3% of its annual profits into employee retraining and development programs. It is a firewall against the kind of disposable workforce mentality that Harrison embodied. But her most significant structural change is the program she demanded. She gives it a name, the Service and Scepter Apprenticeship. It's a formal, funded, multi-year program designed to identify and train talented individuals from the service and hospitality industries for careers in corporate law and management. Harrison Holdings is required to fund it for a minimum of 10 years, and the new joint company is required to hire at least 5 of its graduates annually. The program is to be managed by an independent foundation, ensuring it can't be quietly defunded or dismantled by a future CEO. She designs the curriculum herself, focusing not just on law and finance, but on ethics, negotiation, and the kind of institutional sociology that allows one to see the invisible power structures in any room. This is the restitution she sought. Not an apology, which is just air, but a new set of rules. A new pathway. Would this change be enough in your workplace? A single clause and a single program, born from a moment of humiliation, designed to ensure that talent is never again mistaken for furniture. The change begins. There is still resistance, of course, quiet grumbling in the halls from Harrison's loyalists. The old ways do not die easily. But a path has been opened, a seed of systemic change planted in the heart of the very institution that sought to silence her. Weeks after the renegotiated merger is signed, long after the newspaper articles have faded and the corporate world has moved on to its next drama, Maya walks back into the hotel. She isn't here for a meeting. She is dressed in comfortable jeans and a soft sweater, the armor of the boardroom set aside. She walks past the gleaming penthouse suites and takes the service elevator down to the staff level. She finds Leo and Maria in the employee break room, sharing a small table during their shift change. The room is a stark contrast to the opulence above, utilitarian tables, mismatched chairs, the smell of industrial-strength coffee. It is a place of quiet camaraderie, a world away from the mahogany table where her life changed. They look up as she enters and their faces break into wide, genuine smiles. There is no awe or intimidation in their eyes now, only a warm, familiar recognition. "Miss Lincoln," Maria says, standing up. "It's Maya," she corrects gently, pulling up a chair. "Please." She doesn't talk about the merger or the contract. She asks about them. She asks Leo about his younger sister's school play. She asks Maria about the community college course she's taking at night. They talk for nearly an hour, their conversation easy and unburdened. They share a bag of chips and talk about bad customers, terrible tips, and small dreams for the future. In this quiet, unassuming room, Maya feels a sense of peace that the victory in the boardroom could never provide. The public vindication was necessary, but this private connection is what heals. It reminds her of why she fought so hard, not for power but for people. It was their voices, their unseen struggles, that helped her find her own when she thought it was lost. Whose voice helped you heal when no one clapped? For Maya, it was the whispered hopes of the people who the world so often ignores. As she gets up to leave, Leo stops her. "That program you created," he says, his voice thick with an emotion he can't quite name. "The apprenticeship, is it real?" "It's real," Maya confirms, her smile gentle. "And the first 2 application forms have already been set aside." This is her closure. Not the public accolades or the lucrative new contract, but the quiet moment of giving back the strength she had been given. In this small, fluorescent-lit room, she reclaims the part of herself the boardroom tried to take away, the part that sees people, not roles, the part that values dignity over dominance. She is no longer just the lawyer who won. She is Maya, the woman who sat and shared a bag of chips with her friends. A month later, Maya is in her own office, a modest, functional space filled with books rather than awards, when she gets a call from Robert Chen. He asks to meet, not in his boardroom or a fancy restaurant, but in the small, public atrium of the city's law library. She finds him sitting on a simple wooden bench, a book in his lap. He stands as she approaches, and there is no grandiosity in his greeting, only a quiet, profound sincerity. "Maya," he begins, "my board wanted to send you a bonus." Some grand, performative gesture. I told them no. That's not what you're about. He pauses, choosing his words carefully. You didn't just save my company. You saved me from becoming the kind of man I've always despised, the kind who gets beaten and stays beaten. You reminded me what integrity looks like when it's under fire. This is the recognition that matters. It isn't praise for her brilliance, but an acknowledgement of her character. It is specific, earned, and delivered without an audience. I've come to offer you and your firm a permanent retainer, he continues. We want you on our board as our new head of ethics and oversight. Maya considers it. It's a powerful position, a chance to embed her values at the highest level. She will accept, but with a condition. I will accept the position, she says, on the condition that the first 2 apprentices from the Service and Scepter program, once they graduate, are guaranteed junior positions in my department. I want to build a team that remembers what it's like to pour the water. Chen smiles. It's the first genuine smile she has ever seen on his face. I would expect nothing less. She has shared her victory, transforming her personal triumph into a concrete opportunity for others. The credit is not hers alone. It belongs to the system she is building, the people she is lifting. Recognition done right, agree. It's not a trophy for one, it's a ladder for many. As she and Chen finalize the details, she sees 2 familiar faces at a nearby study carrel. It's Leo and Maria, their heads bent over a thick legal textbook. They are the first 2 enrollees in the apprenticeship, already hard at work. They look up and see her, and Maria gives a small, determined wave. A door has been opened for them, and for all the others who will follow. The room is already changing. 6 months into the apprenticeship program, Maya visits the Foundation's headquarters. It's a bustling, energetic space, a far cry from the stuffy boardrooms where the idea was born. She walks past study rooms and small seminar classes, the air buzzing with debate and discovery. She finds Leo and Maria in the library, a bright, modern room lined with books from floor to ceiling. They are no longer wearing server uniforms, but the casual, focused attire of scholars. They are arguing, good-naturedly, about a point of tort law, their conversation littered with case names and legal principles that would have been a foreign language to them less than a year ago. On the table between them, nestled amongst stacks of books and legal pads, sits a simple glass water pitcher. It's not the ornate crystal pitcher from the penthouse. It's a standard library pitcher, functional and unadorned, but its presence is deliberate, a clear and powerful echo of that day. Maya stops, a smile touching her lips. Maria notices her and grins. "Oh, hey, Maya, we were just getting some water," Leo laughs. "Don't let her fool you." We call it the Lincoln pitcher. We fill it up at the start of every study session. "Why?" Maya asks, though she already knows the answer. "It reminds us to stay clear," Maria explains, her expression serious now. "Clear on the facts, clear on the principles, and clear on who we're fighting for. It reminds us of where we came from." And she adds, her eyes twinkling, "It reminds us that sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one everyone ignores." The object's meaning has been utterly transformed. What was once a symbol of her servitude and invisibility is now, for them, a symbol of clarity, opportunity, and quiet strength. It's not a relic of a past humiliation, but a touchstone for a future of advocacy. Did the object's meaning change for you too, from a crystal cage to a lens of truth? Maya feels a sense of profound peace settle over her. The past has not been erased, but it has been redeemed. It has been turned into a lesson, a legacy, a story they can now tell to inspire others. She looks at the two brilliant, determined students before her, at the pitcher of clear water sitting between them, and she feels a quiet readiness for the future they will all build together. 2 years later, the scene is not a boardroom, not a library, but a classroom. The room is modest, the walls covered in whiteboards filled with complex legal diagrams. The faces looking forward are a vibrant mosaic of society: former baristas, hotel clerks, security guards, and line cooks. This is the graduating seminar for the first cohort of the Service and Scepter Apprenticeship. At the front of the room stands Maya. She is not lecturing. She is listening. The students are presenting their final capstone project, a proposal for a low-cost legal aid clinic for hospitality workers facing wage theft and workplace harassment. It is brilliant, compassionate, and meticulously researched. It is the living embodiment of her work. When they finish, one of the students, a young woman who used to be a hotel concierge, raises her hand. "Maya," she asks, her voice filled with a mixture of respect and genuine curiosity, "we've heard the story about the merger 100 times, but I still have to ask, weren't you terrified, standing up to a man like that in a room like that? How did you know it was the right time to finally speak up?" Maya pauses, her gaze sweeping across the faces of these future lawyers, advocates, and leaders. She sees the same fire in their eyes that she felt in her own heart that day. She thinks of the silence, the humiliation, the weight of a truth that no one wanted to hear. She gives them a small, knowing smile. "I knew it was time," she says, her voice quiet but resonant, filling the hopeful space, "when the cost of my silence became higher than the cost of my voice." The camera holds on her face, calm, centered, a quiet architect of a new kind of power. The students are silent, absorbing the weight of her words. The legacy is not in a plaque on a wall or a clause in a contract. It is here in this room, in the people she has empowered to find their own voices. The room has been changed, permanently, for the better. Whose quiet excellence taught you that your voice was worth more than your silence.